sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Doobie-doobie-doo.
All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can find me there on Thursdays for the JB and Sabby show. And you can find me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. Welcome back, guys. Long time no see. Really quick, I do want to announce this before Max comes on because I just don't want to forget to announce this. Of course, you guys know about the fires in Los Angeles. I did cover that story. I uploaded a video about that posted earlier this afternoon. And I did that as a separate video and not a part of a live stream because I knew I was going to spend some time discussing that particular story. I think that video took about 40 minutes. So that's why that's a separate thing. When you get a chance, make sure you watch that because in that video, I'm not just talking about the fires. I also talk about what happened with the water in Southern California, who owns the water. I also went into the real reason why they don't have more firefighters. It's not just because Karen Bass cut the firefighter budget. So there's a lot more that I went into with that. And I also told you how you can get help if you're in that area, which I'm also going to announce that again tonight. There is a mutual aid Google sheet that is making its way around on social media. And I did link that to that video so that you know these are the certain facilities that are offering some type of mutual aid for people that had to evacuate. Really quick, also, I will let you know, I did just see a post from Kim Iverson on Twitter. You guys know Kim's been on the show multiple times before. She just made an announcement on Twitter that it appears she is going to prepare to pack to evacuate. When I spoke with her yesterday, at that time, it didn't seem to be a need to do so, but now there does seem to be a need. So what that is telling you is that these fires are moving pretty rapidly. And yes, they are in the city, not just on the outskirts. If you know anybody that lives in LA, please reach out to them just to see if they are okay. Because I know quite a couple of people from high school and college that moved out that way. So I did check in on people to make sure they're all right. Even if you think that they may be in a part of the city that is not affected, as I said before, these fires are moving pretty rapidly. So please just check on them anyway, just to be okay. All right. So, in fact, I think we just got, Kay said, chiming in from Northeast LA/South Pasadena, where we're wearing respirators and the air is deadly. These fires are a nightmare. Yeah. And that was one of my biggest concerns was, obviously people are afraid they're going to lose their property. But one of the concerns that I had is the smoke inhalation, like people breathing in all those fumes. A friend of mine was flying over California earlier today. She already posted the pictures on Facebook and she could see all the fires from the plane. She's not even going to California, but she was flying over it. So please just check in with people, you guys, because sometimes people, they may not necessarily tell you. So just check in and make sure they're all right. Okay. All right. So that being said, I do want to go ahead and we'll go ahead and show the thumbnail and then shout out patrons as well before Max gets here. Let's go ahead and share that screen. And we will do call in tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday, so get ready for that. I'm excited about that. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing interesting stuff here. So Max Blumenthal is going to join us. He just wrote a recent article with the Gray Zone, new information here about Israel and a couple of other things that we need to get into as well. We're also going to discuss, if you have not heard this is not looking good for Sunny Hostin family lawsuit. It appears that her husband there may be in some type of trouble, allegedly, and this has to deal with insurance. So I don't know if 2025 is going to be the year of insurance issues or lawsuits, but we haven't even made it to the end of January yet, and we already have another lawsuit and another one that deals with insurance. So just keep that in mind. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump seeks Greenland and apparently the Panama Canal. I'm going to tell you, and I don't know if everyone explained this yet, but I'm going to tell you the real reason that Donald Trump wants Greenland. It's not because of us. It's not because of us, and it is not because of the Greenland people. So I'll get into all of that. And we're also going to discuss excellent job here by my comrade Nick on Revolutionary Blackout Network. He debated Ro Khanna, and Ro Khanna was the one that contacted him, and he asked to come on. So it wasn't the other way around. I really want to get into that because there's a couple of things that I do think are pretty revealing. And what does this mean? Like, what does it mean for the left movement? The fact that Ro Khanna reached out to him, reached out to Nick privately, and Nick did not reach out to Ro Khanna. What does that mean for the Democratic Party? What does that mean for the left? And where do we go from there? So really quick as well, let me go ahead and pull this up because I don't want to forget about this. I'm just going to go, Eric, can we go to part 2 of Type VNC? I just want to show people that announcement for the mutual aid in Los Angeles. And then I'll show it again later on too. But I just want to make sure that people know that there are people there to help. Yeah, if you can just go to part 2. Thanks so much. Okay, guys, again, if you're in the LA area, there are people trying to help. So shout out to the People's City Council of Los Angeles because they have been on it. I mean, they've been covering this from day one. Bam, bam, bam. And they shared this information here. Mutual aid resources, Palisades and Eaton Fires know of groups providing aid, places for shelter and animal rescue centers. So they sent out that call and then they created a Google sheet here. There are all of these different facilities that are offering mutual aid if you need resources. They listed the city, the name of the facility, the aid that they are offering, whether it's free items, animal boarding. This is another thing I got to mention really quick as well, if you guys don't mind. People need to understand that when people are evacuated, that means they have to take their pets too. And I saw a number of videos where people were like, I have to get my dog, I have to get my cat. So just keep that in mind. For a lot of people, their pets are their family, especially for those that don't have children. But even if they do have children, just keep in mind, it's not just them sometimes, and they do have to bring their animals as well. Their animals also need food, and they listed the addresses. So you can see here, Pasadena World Central Kitchen, and they mentioned they're giving away free items. This is incredibly important. And again, shout out to the People's City Council of LA for putting this together. And they also ask a question whether or not you have animals. So see, they realize that some people are going to have that, and they do need help with the animals as well. So again, Eric, can you put the link to that Google sheet in the live chat? And when we are done with the stream, I will also post that in the comment section. So again, you have another place to go to get access to those resources. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you around here, fam. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. I love these names, man. I didn't come up with this on my own, by the way. There's Sabbies, of course. You guys know about them. Again, they are the meat of the sandwich. And of course, there are members. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate all of you there. And I want to give a shout out to everyone who is a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Lynn, Kelly McKay, and Alvaro Guevara. When I saw Kelly McKay's name, I was like, okay. You guys know Mr. Mackey from South Park. Kelly might not like that, but yeah, Mr. Mackey from South Park. He's like, okay. I think that's him who says that. But yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Tabitha. Thanks for the info, Sabby and Eric. Yeah. I know quite a bit of you are in California. I can tell, like, when we do the call-ins, there's a number of you that say you're in California. So again, I hope everyone is okay. So far, I heard the death total. They said there were 2 confirmed deaths. I don't know if that's still the case as of now. But of course, you don't want anyone to lose their life in this type of thing. But I got to tell you, the fires, what I saw with the fires, they're just moving so quickly. And the winds, this is another thing I got to mention, those Santa Ana winds. Guys, these winds, like, those are hurricane speeds, like 80 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. Those are the type of wind speeds that we see on the East Coast when we have hurricanes. So those winds are very powerful. And we're used to dealing with that when we have a hurricane. Now imagine having that wind speed with fires. 5. I heard 5. I hope it hasn't risen. Gus also said 5. Oh, so it's 5. It's 5 now. Yeah. Shirley said Berkeley here, but in the flats away from the hills where the fires start. Okay, so Shirley, it sounds like you are going to be safe. At least I hope. Yeah, guys, just make sure you check on people because, like I said, yesterday, Kim said she was probably going to be fine. And now, different story. So that's how fast they're moving. Okay, I think Max is here. Max, whenever you're ready, just give me a thumbs up and I'll bring you in. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my special guest tonight is Max Blumenthal. He is, of course, the founder of The Gray Zone, investigative journalist. Let me go ahead and bring you in. Welcome back, Max. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great to see you. Thanks for bringing me on and being so patient.
Great to see you too. While we were just talking about the fires, I don't know. Do you know anybody in LA? Because I know you used to live out there a little bit.
Close friend just lost everything. Just had to put up a GoFundMe. And yeah, other friends are trying to wait it out, getting evacuation orders one minute and then the next minute being told, everything's fine, stay where you are. And they have as much of their belongings as they can fit in their cars. So yeah, it's an apocalyptic scenario. And once this passes, I think everyone living in LA will have to be ready for the next one.
I think so too. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I was just telling everyone, I spoke to Kim Iverson yesterday and she said they were fine so far, but then she just posted on Twitter that it looks like they may have to leave too.
Yeah, no one knows what to expect next based on my conversations with people out there. Anyone who lives anywhere close to the hills is in danger of losing everything. And yeah, so shout out to everyone in LA. Like, I can't imagine what you're going through. Everyone except James Woods.
I made fun of him today. Yeah, he's ridiculous. He has some nerve.
Yeah, it's karma. Well, I mean, is it karma? It's not like he's going to have like amputation operations with no anesthesia while watching his children get slaughtered. But that's what he wished on the people of Gaza.
You're right. You're right. All right. Well, speaking of that, Max, you wrote an article recently. I want to go ahead and bring this up here on the screen. Leaked emails expose collaborative efforts between the Israeli government and the Center for Countering Digital Hate. And you said here that these emails were obtained by the Gray Zone. It reveals how leading anti-hate campaigner Imran Ahmed collaborated with Israeli embassy officials to censor pro-Palestinian social media accounts. I want to get into that, especially since I just heard this announcement from Mark Zuckerberg that I guess Facebook is going to loosen up their censorship. Interesting, that's happening now that a new administration is coming in. But anyway, I want to hear a little bit more about this because earlier on, not too long after October 7th, you guys did sound the alarm that they were censoring pro-Palestinian content on social media. I would say also kind of on YouTube too, but go ahead.
Well, this story is wild for a lot of reasons. One is that Elon Musk is currently at war with this group, CCDH, the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Such a humbly titled organization. They're just fighting hate. They're just against hate, and we need to stop hate. Who could disagree with that? But he's been Imran Ahmed, first of all, let me finish that thought about Elon Musk. He's at war with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is accusing him and his organization of foreign interference, wants to destroy him. Emails were exposed by Matt Taibbi and Paul Thacker, internal emails showing that he had a plan to kill Elon Musk's Twitter, obviously on behalf of the Biden administration. And now Elon and his Trump allies are accusing this organization of foreign interference because Imran Ahmed came over from the UK and was very close to Keir Starmer. He's a very close ally of Keir Starmer. The founder, the original director of this organization, became Keir Starmer's chief of staff. So I dropped this piece showing that not only is CCDH and Imran Ahmed, who was a British Labour Party operative from the part of the Labour Party that destroyed Jeremy Corbyn, not only was he, a British operative, but that he was working directly with the Israeli embassy in DC to censor pro-Palestinian accounts and specifically Palestine activist groups that organize on Facebook. And the Israeli embassy was hooking him up with donors, and he was letting them vet his reports before they went out. And I showed this through emails it couldn't have been clearer. And I confirmed that the emails were real with Imran Ahmed and an Israeli embassy official who I got on the phone. You would think Elon Musk would just be going crazy with this right now, but he hasn't said anything about it. And if anything, the story's been suppressed through the algorithm on Twitter, which just shows how owned Elon Musk is by Israel as well.
Yes.
So that it reveals so much about the way things get done in Washington. Even if you kind of get lost in the weeds of the details of this story, here you have a fake anti-hate campaigner who is fighting disinformation. This is one of the big grifts of the establishment now. And the Israeli embassy is telling him, he goes to them and asks basically for money. He's just give me money and I'll do whatever you want. And they're like, we'll hook you up with some philanthropists. And that shows you how the Israeli government does business in this country and in Europe, which is that there'll be some wealthy, quote unquote, Jewish philanthropist who's actually an Israeli government asset shelling out money, but the Israeli embassy is giving them the instructions on who to give the money to. And that's not considered foreign interference at all. It's just that's business as usual. So there's a lot in this story that just shows how corrupt our system is, but especially how corrupt this disinformation racket is.
Are you surprised? I know when Elon did decide to buy Twitter and renamed it X, he was really on this free speech bandwagon. And I think a lot of people bought into that. And then the moment October 7th happened, people started to notice, wait a minute, they're suppressing Palestinian content or anything that was pro-Palestinian. And then Elon took that trip to Israel, didn't go to Gaza, of course. And as time went by, more people are saying Elon is not pro free speech after all. Now he's saying that he's going to change the algorithm to promote positive content, whatever that means, whichever he says is positive. Are you surprised that Elon is willing to go along with what Israel wants as well, even just for this platform?
No, I did an hour on that very question yesterday on our live stream with Patrick Henningsen, because he's, I think, one of the few people following this critically, who really gets what's going on. But if you understand the system that we're in and we're entering, I mean, we're going from kind of neoliberal capitalism into techno-feudal oligarchy, where just a few billionaires, like a cartel of billionaires, will subject us to their whims. And that is what Elon Musk is, why he bought Twitter. He's going to sell it for a massive IPO, but he bought it to control the narrative. And when he bought it, I knew who he was. I knew what he was bringing to the table. I knew he was a kind of a technocrat figure, who believes in transhumanism, who is eccentric in the extreme, names his children for quadratic formulas, likes to donate his sperm to as many female employees as possible to perfect the human race, only impregnates his girlfriends through IVF for whatever reason. And it's just a bizarre character, but I supported it because the previous regime in Twitter under, the top censor Yoel Roth, was crushing us and was forcing everyone to have these labels like, Bulgarian state affiliated media, everything the disinformation industry wanted, they were doing. And I don't think I would have survived after October 7th, questioning the mass rape hoax, questioning even the 40 beheaded babies hoax. And everybody was just getting suspended left and right. So Elon did open that up. The Twitter files were an important intervention just to show how much censorship was taking hold. And we got to see what was happening inside Twitter, but YouTube has really been the worst.
Yes.
Which is owned by Google, which is a military contractor. So what we're seeing with YouTube and what you face is more of like the deeply entrenched national security state and the whole financial system behind it exerting its force on content creators. So if we challenge the national security state and we talk about CIA activities or question, a Syrian chemical attack, or we got a strike, and YouTube wouldn't even allow us to upload a video where we questioned who is behind the Majdal Shams attack in Israeli occupied Golan Heights in, I believe, October or September, because that was the attack that gave Israel the latitude to start attacking inside Lebanon, which led to the killing of Hassan Nasrallah and the destruction of Lebanon. And they needed something to politically activate Israelis so they could expand the war into Lebanon. And that was it. And there was so much evidence that the warhead that was used was not something in Hezbollah's arsenal. I talked to people actually in the community who didn't believe it. We weren't even allowed to upload that video. So what I'm saying is YouTube is something much deeper, but the censorship you get from Twitter is because Elon Musk wakes up one day and gets pissed off that his own MAGA lackeys are slagging him for his support for the H-1B visa.
Yep.
And his desire to replace skilled white American labor with that of imported Indians working for less so he can increase his profits, and supporting Vivek Ramaswamy basically attacking white America for having too many sleepovers and not producing enough mathletes and worshiping Screech from Saved by the Bell. He got so mad, he actually called them irredeemable. What did he call them? Unrepentant racists. And this is one of the biggest unrepentant racists who's, on that right now, he's on a tirade about like days long bender about Pakistani rape gangs. He pivoted from supporting Hindu mathletes coming into Twitter's offices and taking over to like coding positions to portraying Pakistani youth as a bunch of savage rapists who need to be investigated in this mass inquiry in Britain, and supporting Tommy Robinson, who is like a Israel-backed race thug, supremacist race thug. I mean, the Elon's swings are so wild, and we're just caught in between because we live in a techno-feudal system. We're at the dawn of a techno-feudal system. So he changed the algorithm to deprioritize what he calls negativity, which is the attacks on him for like selling out Trump's base. That's negativity, and more entertainment. He's going to get more entertainment. I haven't seen anything more entertaining on Twitter. I've seen like there's tons of like ads for butt enhancing jeans for men that I see. Like all kinds of X gear and sex toy ads. There's nothing entertaining that's been like put in my feed. And then when I go to For You, where they just like it's more like force you. Here's what we will force you to see. It's just every psychotic Zionist influencer talking about how all the dead children in Gaza are really Pallywood. So I don't know what happened with the algorithm, but it's just to defend himself, because his class position has been challenged by his own people. And now he's talking about taking over the UK, taking over the Reform Party in the UK to kick out Nigel Farage, supporting Tommy Robinson, removing Keir Starmer, supporting the AfD in Germany, taking over Greenland so he can get some of the $1.3 trillion of rare earth minerals there for his lithium batteries. And what else does he want to do? Oh, today now he wants to topple Nicolas Maduro again. He's supporting the CIA-backed arsonist Maria Corina Machado in Venezuela. He's having a megalomaniacal meltdown, and we're just subjects. We're like little medieval peons who are just like looking trying to peer behind the walls of the castle to see what the Mad King is doing with his sperm receptacle women and the weird babies they produce. Like, that's the world we're living in. Mark Zuckerberg, another figure. What did he do? He got rid of the fact checkers on Facebook because there's a new sheriff in town. Yep. And he doesn't have like any ideology like Elon Musk. He's like part of the financial elite that just goes with power, kind of like Jeff Bezos. And Trump's in power, so there won't be censorship. If a Democrat came into power, it'd be censorship on steroids. Facebook would be funding all kinds of disinformation psyops. He's just, he's just so happy to be able to be in the room and be making billions of dollars. And again, I mean, it doesn't matter what we think or say in that world. So it's important to really be clear about what we're up against. And we're up against these billionaires. And at the same time, we can also benefit when they're like having a good day and decide like, oh, I'm going to let you speak.
Right. It's just a matter of when they're having a good day and how many good days they are going to have. But speaking of censorship, I don't know if you saw this. This video has been making the rounds on X. And this is Dwight Howard, NBA player. He brings up a moment during this interview where he was censored because of Palestine. Everyone listen to this.
So I tweet free Palestine. Less than 10 minutes after I tweet that, I get a call from the commissioner of the NBA.
Stop it.
Agents, people like working with my foundation at the time, Texas, you gotta erase this tweet. You gotta take this down. You're going to get it. I'm like, what did I do that was so bad?
Can somebody explain to me?
Yeah, can somebody explain? And it was just like, because I went against the grain. I said something that people didn't like. And I, now.
Not people didn't like, they didn't like.
So now it's like, I got to stand on what I believe and how I feel and not go back on it.
Yeah.
And when you're in the league, you be in that place where if I say too much, or if I say something, I may not get a job no more.
That's that 70% of people that's out the league that got you.
I gotta hold my tongue.
Yeah. So that was Dwight Howard. And are you familiar with NBA, Max?
Is he still in the league? Because he's like almost my age.
I don't think so anymore. That's a good point. But you know who he is.
Yeah. Of course. He played on our scrub squad here in Washington for like a minute.
So that goes back to the censorship around Israel as well. And it's not just him. Like, remember, Kyrie Irving. A lot of people don't know this one, but here in Boston, the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown, there's a reason why Jaylen Brown was not on the Olympics basketball team. And people were asking me about that. Why is Jason Tatum and Holiday there, but not Jaylen Brown when he was the MVP? Because Jaylen Brown decided to stand with Palestine. A lot of people may not be aware of that. But how do you feel about Dwight Howard saying that the commissioner contacted him and told him you have to take that tweet down?
Yeah, I think he must not be in the league anymore if he's able to speak with that level of candor. The commissioner is Adam Silver, and the previous commissioner was David Stern. They're both Jewish. Most wealthy Jewish people in America are ideologically Zionist, or they have a lot of Zionist pressure on them because of the position they're in. So it must have been personal for Adam Silver, though I don't know his politics very well. The NBA is less, my understanding is the culture of it and the relationship between the commissioner and the players is less toxic and onerous than the NFL with Roger Goodell, who's just like this corporate hitman, where like the NBA always would bend to the players union when they wanted to smoke weed. Like, it was just, a lot of the players like to smoke weed, so they're not going to start banning them and destroying them like the NFL destroyed Ricky Williams and Warren Sapp, who were two players who had just Ricky Williams said he had like severe anxiety and he needed THC to help calm him down. Warren Sapp just got like caught with it in his system and they like suspended him for a year. So the NBA's reputation is what I'm saying is you're dealing with a much more liberal culture. NBA fans tend to be more liberal, they support the Democrats more. And it's like the one forbidden thing is to say free Palestine. Meanwhile, the Miami Heat just had a night, like an official night for Israel, where crazy Zionist settlers were on the floor dancing to like Hebrew pop music and nationalist Israeli songs. The Miami Heat are owned by the Arison family, Sherry Arison and I think Ted Arison, who own Carnival Cruise Lines. If you are trying to do BDS, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to like go on that repulsive boat in the first place, but don't go on Carnival Cruise Lines. But you know, Israeli culture in the NBA is encouraged. And there was an Israeli player here in Washington on the Wizards. I forget his name because he was, he was just like a body on the court that would just go up and down. But he was like, after October 7th, he was wearing an Israeli flag and like did all these ceremonies with the local Israeli diaspora, and the embassy officials came out to the court, and like Palestine is just forbidden and in every institution in this country because it threatens power. And the Zionist power in the US is just generally threatened by Black people and their political potential, because it knows that they tend to identify with other oppressed people around the world. So it always has to punish them extremely harshly. If you look at like Black celebrities who've spoken up for Palestine and the amount of punishment they've received, like Danny Glover, for example, the amount of roles that cost him over the years, or even what happened to Kyrie Irving, who wasn't really saying anything about Palestine, but he published one like Black Hebrew Israelite video on Twitter that would have been like forgotten. But it contains some allegedly anti-Semitic themes. And he got shook down so hard by the Anti-Defamation League. They were going to basically run him out of the league. And in the end, in order to restore his good standing, he had to pay $500,000 to the ADL. I mean, and yes, he was left off the U.S. Olympic team. He's like one of the best jump shooters in NBA history, natural scores, and he's not allowed on the Olympic team because of that. So this is, I mean, I think what you're showing me with Dwight Howard is emblematic of a much larger trend, and is in the Israeli lobby, the Israeli government itself has invested so much money in cultivating athletes, especially Black athletes, taking them on free trips to Israel. Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, is a huge Zionist.
Yes.
And he takes all of his players, any player who wants to go on a trip to Israel, to like basically brainwash them, and took Tom Brady to like a shooting range. You know, the players generally they have no context for understanding the situation of Palestinians, and they just like to go on a free trip. Many of them grow up Christian, like they're Baptists, Southern Baptists, and so they think it's just going to the Holy Land, and they get brainwashed. The league, the NBA, like at the top, the culture is Zionist. On the floor, the culture is Free Palestine, except for a few Israeli players, and it really makes it look like a plantation when they get treated that way.
It really does. And this is something else. Someone sent this to me. I was not aware of this. This happened in 2017. NBA apology for Palestine wording after Israel complaint. It says the NBA has apologized and removed wording from its website referring to Palestine occupied territory on Friday after complaints by an Israeli minister. This is crazy. Like, to the point where an organization or a state can be so powerful that they can shake you down to the point where you have to remove language from your website. And that is just absurd to me. Like, I can't imagine any other country having this type of power over the United States to say, we don't like something, you need to take it off your website.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I hadn't seen that story before, but I was just reading into the text, and the Israeli minister is the social affairs minister. Her name is Miri Regev. She's one of the biggest racists in the Israeli government. She's from Netanyahu's Likud party, and she headlined a literal anti-African race riot rally. And she screamed about like Sudanese people taking over our country. And then the crowd went and rioted in a neighborhood filled with African migrants in Tel Aviv and smashed their cars up. I did a documentary with David Sheen, who is, I think, the premier Israeli reporter covering this issue of anti-African racism in Israel. And it's called Israel's New Racism. We did it. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. It has like 4 million views. Somehow it hasn't been banned. And Miri Regev is just at the center of this anti-Black incitement in Israel. And now she's dictating to the NBA commissioner. I mean, that's, to me, shocking, but also in some ways predictable.
Well, it's like the story that was reported by The Guardian about they were sterilizing Ethiopian women in Israel against their will. And that story resurfaced again after October 7th. But all of a sudden people are like, oh, it's just the Palestinians. I'm like, no, they were sterilizing women against their will, like Ethiopian women.
Yeah. They, always, there's actually a book called what is it called? Birthing the Nation, I think it's called Birthing the Nation by Rhoda Kanane, who is a Palestinian academic whose her family, they're Palestinian citizens of Israel. And it's about Israeli natalist policies. And Israel has always, had always traditionally since 1948 de-incentivized Arab or Palestinian women who are citizens of Israel from having children. They would come into their communities and give them lots of birth control education, family planning education. And early on, after 48 in Israel, David Ben-Gurion would hold a contest and give out cash awards for Jewish women who could have the most children. Because at its base, Israel is this racist, supremacist country that's engaged in a demographic trench war with the indigenous population, and they need to outpopulate them in order to win, which means, if you kill lots of them and bomb their children, bomb entire families, that helps you win the war. It's actually an unspoken reason why Israel is eliminating so many entire families in the Gaza Strip. There was a Zionist academic tied to the Israeli government from Harvard University named Martin Kramer, who referred to Palestinian males as superfluous young men in the Gaza Strip, economically superfluous. Like there's nothing that Israel could do with them and they can't get rid of them. So they're just there populating and making more children. It's a nightmare for Israel. They have to deal with this somehow. The only way to deal with it ultimately, when you understand the logic of Zionism, is genocide. So we're looking at a genocidal project that is imposing its will on our own society and our own culture and on the NBA, which is, obviously an oppressive institution to begin with.
That's right. And then there's new news that came out. And I know you probably already saw this and you're probably saying, I told you so. But this was recently announced. No rape allegations filed from October 7th reveal Israeli prosecutor. This is huge, you guys. If you haven't heard this, Israeli authorities have admitted that no allegations of sexual assault have been filed from the October 7th cross-border infiltration by Palestinian resistance factions, despite extensive investigation. And you go here, it says that Maureen Gass, she went on to say, in the end, we don't have any complainants. What was presented in the media compared to what will eventually come together will be entirely different. So, Max, I'm pretty sure you're doing a victory lap here because you and, of course, Electric Intifada, and I believe Mondaweiss also called this earlier on, that there was no evidence of this. And now they're finally admitting that there's no evidence of this and there's no allegations.
Well, they've admitted it again and again in various ways, but I can't call it a victory lap because they got the genocide they wanted out of it. They got the consent from the Western leadership, particularly liberal leaderships in Brussels, London, Washington, that they wanted. They got the bombs. And now that they've destroyed 80% of the Gaza Strip, they can declare, actually, we didn't have any survivors. There was no testimony. There was no, in the precise words of the Israeli prosecutor, there was no chain of evidence. And that's what we've been saying from the beginning. Because if you're going to bring an allegation that is so titanic and so explosive, you might as well have one piece of evidence. And they didn't have one piece of evidence. They have thousands and thousands of hours of footage and forensic evidence from October 7th, and they couldn't produce one single piece of evidence to support the claim of a systematic campaign of sexual assault by Hamas. It's so cynical. It's such a colossal psyop. And none of the stories that appeared in the New York Times on the front page, the Washington Post, in the Israeli press, or any of the articles attacking me in the Israeli press, me by name specifically, or in the Washington Post, 2 articles were published attacking me and attacking the gray zone. None of it's been corrected, retracted. There's been no acknowledgement. So it feels kind of like we're just living in a separate reality.
So when Piers Morgan, who's continuing to say this, that yes, there was sexual assault on October 7th. I've seen the video footage. What is he talking about?
He's talking about, a bunch of brown guys ran across the border and were yelling things. And there were women who were taken hostage, who were mostly Israeli female soldiers who are so-called spotters for the Gaza division. And they were handled roughly because that's what happens when you kidnap people. And they were used as collateral. Again, once again, there's no evidence that any of them were sexually assaulted, sexually abused. There's no video of it. But Piers Morgan, he just gets the vibe because he feels like, well, that's just what those people do or what they would do. Or maybe he just hangs out with so many British pedophiles. He thinks like that's what everybody does. But what we do have evidence of is very clear evidence out there. video evidence, testimonies, and confessions of Israeli soldiers anally raping Palestinian men in the Sde Teman concentration camp in the Negev desert. And you would think this would be like the scandal of the year, but there's no front page stories about this. There's no, Jake Tapper's gonna do a special investigation, lisping his way through innuendo and distortions of half truths, with a sad basset hound face to give you the feeling like that a mass rape occurred on October 7th. That's not happening. There's no Dana Bash acknowledgement. Israel had riots across the country in support of the soldiers who were going to be put on trial for anally raping Palestinian men on camera. Military bases were invaded. The Ministry of Defense, I think, was taken over briefly, like January 6th style, by these rioters. Members of Netanyahu's cabinet spoke out in support of the rapists. Netanyahu's son, who is on permanent vacation in Miami, next door to the future home of Vladimir Zelensky, he spoke out in support of the rapists. And it's like, it's all there. It should be like the biggest scandal, and the US media won't touch it. And now Pramila Patten, who was the United Nations Special Rapporteur on gender-based violence, something like that. She had already gone to Israel to investigate the Israeli allegations against Hamas. She wants to go back, and they won't let her. Israel won't let her do a proper investigation because it's afraid that she will look into the documented evidence of rape against Israeli soldiers. So that should tell you everything you need to know about this whole scenario.
And by the way, today, for those who are not aware, 45, I told you again, they work together with Israel. 45 Democrats voted with Republicans to prevent the ICC from having any type of warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, that's what they're prioritizing right now legislatively, like not the wildfires, not American people, but protecting Benjamin Netanyahu. That just happened today.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect Republicans to prioritize deregulating industries and helping out fat cats, but Netanyahu took priority here, and foreign country, and took priority for the America First Congress led by Mike Johnson. This was like the first piece of legislation in the new session of Congress. Am I right?
Yes.
And the last piece of legislation, it was introduced at the end before the winter recess, and this is the first thing they voted on.
Yeah,
and it really shows you what the top priority of the House GOP, and I mean some of the Democrats, is as well. And I wish there was like a kind of clever 3-letter acronym that would help explain the occupied government that we live under, but I don't want to get accused of being a self-hating Jew, so I just won't even go there.
Well, it shows you like what we're headed for. Like I said before, they really do put American people last. I mean, I just think about the lag in response to the fires that happened in Lahaina. And then now we have the wildfires in the LA area. I mean, this is a very immediate pressing issue, but their first thought is, how can we help protect Benjamin Netanyahu? So all of these people are like bought and paid for. And then that brings me to this one, because Donald Trump is on his way to the White House. He did give a statement recently about Gaza and about the hostages. Everyone listen to this.
All hell must be paid if they don't release the hostages.
You know what that means, don't you? Well, do I have to define it for you? Look, all hell will break out. If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them. There should have never been the attack of October 7th. People.
Okay. So that was the statement that came from Donald Trump. Again, it's not surprising to me. I don't think it's surprising to you at all. But do you think that this negotiation that they're supposedly working on is going to happen before the presidential inauguration, which I believe is January 20th? Do you believe that's going to happen before Trump takes office? And if not, where do you see this going?
I can't get involved in predictions. I don't bet on things. I saw Delta Airlines is now going to allow you to do like sports gambling on planes now. I think that's something I'll just never get involved in. But I understand the dynamics at play pretty well. And, if you want to make a prediction, consider that Hamas has never been cowed since October 7th, despite having the full force of one of the most vicious, sadistic, and powerful militaries in human history thrown at it. And that its leader, the mastermind of this whole strategy of October 7th, which was all about getting Gaza out of the siege and preventing normalization between Israel and the Gulf states and preventing the demise of the Palestinian struggle. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, how did he go down? He didn't go down hiding in a bunker surrounded by hostages as Netanyahu and all these Israeli jackals said he would. And he didn't go down selling out his people. He went down fighting in the field with his men with nothing but a pack of Mentos to eat. Autopsy showed he hadn't eaten in 3 days. He was experiencing the same suffering as everyone else in Gaza. Wasn't some billionaire. And his final act was to throw a stick at an Israeli quadricopter with his right arm blown off by a tank. And now it's much harder to negotiate without a figure like Yahya Sinwar there, because there isn't one single figure to talk to who has spearheaded the entire operation. But that just is symbolic of the attitude of Hamas, which is that they're not going to be broken until their terms are met. And they would always conclude their communiques to the public in Gaza with something that actually American revolutionaries said, like Patrick Henry, liberty or death. They would always say freedom or death. And that's what so it doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. They've already lost 80% of their homes. Over 50,000 are dead. We're seeing human misery on an unprecedented scale. And Hamas is still in the field, along with many other resistance factions in Gaza fighting. And the Israeli soldiers are still taking losses in Gaza. And it's going to continue until a real deal is put on the table. Hamas agreed to a ceasefire in May. I actually interviewed a senior Hamas Politburo member, Osama Hamdan, in November. And he said, we have already agreed to terms. We did. And I said, did this happen in May? He said, yes, in May. And we agreed again. And Hamas also offered to release all hostages or all captives in mid-October, so long as Israel did not invade the Gaza Strip. We saw good faith negotiations actually succeed in delivering in very good health and good spirits half of the captives and hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. But this was so humiliating to Israel that they couldn't allow it to happen again. So it really depends on whether Trump wants to twist Benjamin Netanyahu's arm, because Netanyahu is the real obstructionist in addition to being the arsonist. And here's a interesting clue into Trump's thinking, and I'm not going to read too much into it, but on Truth Social, Trump tweeted out footage of Jeffrey Sachs slamming Netanyahu as a dark and malign individual. I don't know if, Jeffrey Sachs made a lot of other comments. He criticized Obama. It's never clear what Trump is thinking.
Right.
But perhaps Trump has become frustrated with Netanyahu. One thing I can say about Trump is he doesn't want to have an open-ended conflict heading towards war, careening towards war with Iran at the beginning of his administration.
Well, I was going to tell you, I did read today that Netanyahu was supposed to come to Donald Trump's inauguration. He has now decided not to come. Do you think that's a sign of something?
It could be. It could also be a sign of Netanyahu's failing health. He just had a major prostate operation. Unlike people in Gaza, he had it with anesthesia. But, this was a serious surgery for Netanyahu. And it could be cancer for all we know. I don't think it was just a urinary tract infection, as we were told.
Right. Very interesting. I would say this because I do see a number of people on social media saying, we told you guys that Trump would be worse after that video went around. And my whole thing is that even if Kamala Harris would have won, I still think they still would have killed more Palestinian people. It would have been done more. And I think Trump is overt, and I think Kamala and Biden are, covert about it. Like they'll say some things that kind of make it sound like they have some type of sympathy for the Palestinian people. But along the way, all of them have agreed to basically give Israel what it wants, in my opinion.
Yeah. Remember when Trump vowed fire and fury would rain down on Pyongyang and the North Korean leadership if it didn't agree to his terms? That was Trump. And I'd actually seen Nikki Haley brag at a private meeting. I kind of infiltrated. I saw her brag. This was Trump's UN ambassador, and I think she became Secretary of State. I can't even remember what she was. She was bragging about how she threatened to assassinate the Chinese leadership if they didn't back down on North Korea or something. This is all this very crude attempt to implement the Kissinger madman theory that Nixon employed, where you act really crazy at the beginning of negotiations and you threaten the person on the other side of the table with just doing something that's irrational, make them fear you. And then the terms they eventually bring to the table are more favorable and more elastic. And that's what Trump did. And then he wound up going and exchanging love letters with Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, and getting sabotaged by John Bolton. So he could be doing the same thing here. This is part of Trump's art of the deal. The difference is he's threatening a besieged faction of guerrilla fighters who will not be cowed. And it's unclear whether, and on the other side, he's being basically paid by an agent of Netanyahu, Miriam Adelson. So it's unclear whether he's actually going to be able to make a deal, even if he wants to. And yes, this genocide would still be continuing if Kamala Harris had won re-election. Plans to strike Iranian nuclear facilities were actually presented to Joe Biden by his national security director, Jake Sullivan, just a few weeks ago. And now we have to worry that Trump will execute those plans. But what we're seeing from Trump is continuity with, worse marketing techniques. As you said, he's more overt. The mask is off on the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, the special relationship under Trump. He embraces Netanyahu and doesn't pretend to be pressuring him like the Biden administration does while it, hands him 2,000-pound baby buster bombs under the table. And, not saying that I prefer that, but it isn't necessarily objectively worse. I think what I think Trump wants to do is something on almost every issue. There's continuity, including on tariffs against China, escalation against China. Trump hasn't come into office. The U.S. military is currently training Taiwanese special forces right now for an invasion. The U.S. military has been preparing to expand AFRICOM in Africa, hyping up the threat of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And Trump's going to do the same thing, but he's going to do it in a much more crude fashion.
Crazy stuff. All right, Max Blumenthal, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks as always for having me. Great seeing you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was Max Blumenthal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance to do so, smash the like button. Thank you so much. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're going to move on to, we have 3 other news stories, and we will do call in tonight. In particular, especially if those of you are in California, it's usually a lot of people on the call in that are from California. I'm interested in hearing in how you're doing as well, especially if you're in the Southern California area. There's a thanks so much from there from Anna and Jenny. All right. Okay, guys. So the theme for tonight's show is what matters most. And you're going to see that with the next stories that we get into. Let's go ahead and get to the super chats first, and then we'll go ahead and go to the next news story. Thank you. General Mille says maxing for the win. I think that's what that is, for the win, right? Okay. I'm getting better with some of these acronyms. Sabby and Max, always a good pair. Thank you so much. And thank you for this one as well. Sabby, Max, and Jackson Hinkle, Max as Elder Jackson. That is interesting. And Eartha says, please note that Trump's son-in-law wants the Gaza land. There you go. There you go. Yeah, everybody wants that land, don't they? It's rich in resources and it's right along the coast. Everybody wants that land. So keep that in mind. We are moving on to, I think I'm making good time. So we're moving on to the next story. So you guys have seen a lot from Sunny Hostin lately from The View. She has had some pretty weird takes. One recently, I believe JB covered the story about her comparing January 6th to slavery. Like she's all over the damn place. But now it appears that Sunny and the fam may be in some sort of trouble. There is a lawsuit that has headed their way. And I do want to start with this clip first, just to give you a reminder of there was something that she said on The View. And a lot of people are bringing this right back around now because of that lawsuit. Sunny Hostin's husband has been named in a massive insurance fraud RICO case. Watch Hostin implicates her husband in such a scheme. So we're going to say allegedly, and this is the clip that they are referring to. Pay very close attention.
Wait, hold on. Let Sunny get in here. I mean, I agree with mostly everything that's been said. I mean, we know that, only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get.
Let's go back.
Only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do. So there are a lot of problems with it. But the notion that we are in a violent country, this country was built on violence. We're a very violent country. And it's just undeniable that that's the case. And so I'm not, unfortunately, surprised that people are celebrating the use of violence. I'm not surprised that this young man thought that change could be accomplished through violence. 1 in 4 Americans say violence against government sometimes is justified. And today, in 2024, 1 in 10 Americans say violence is justified right now against corporations and government.
It's very scary.
Those are just.
And even though I don't think he might change.
So did everybody catch what she said there? Because whoever remembered this clip, like I remember covering that, but whoever posted this on X, and a lot of people have shared it. What she said in this clip was that her husband, who's, I guess, trying to do good in the medical industry, operates on patients without insurance and then has to end up suing the insurance company. So people are now bringing this back around again because of this new lawsuit. And I told you guys, again, I don't know if 2025 is just going to be the year for lawsuits. We're not even halfway through January. This is the second lawsuit this year. Second one that I am covering that I know about. because this came out just the other day. It says The View co-host Sunny Hostin's surgeon husband, Emmanuel, is accused of insurance fraud in a bombshell lawsuit. For those who are not aware, insurance fraud is a big deal. I believe this can be considered a felony from what I understand. Like, this is not like a whoopsie, I messed up and you get a slap on the wrist misdemeanor. No, this is a big deal. So let's continue on with this here. The longtime husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin is starting the new year under a cloud after being accused of federal insurance fraud. Orthopedic surgeon Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin is among nearly 200 defendants named in one of the largest RICO cases ever filed in New York. So this is RICO. So remember how they went after Trump with the RICO case? And now they're going after Sunny's husband with a RICO case. Remember how Sunny spoke out in support of the RICO case against Donald Trump. Now, I checked The View. I have not seen a statement from Sunny Hostin about this yet. But now it's like in a similar situation, this time a member of her family is a part of a RICO case. So let's continue. And don't forget, Sunny was a prosecutor. Don't forget about that. So let's go on. Cloudness said RICO on your ass. Oh my God. Oh boy. Let's continue. It goes on to say he and many others are accused of getting kickbacks by performing surgery and fraudulently billing a company that insures taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers. We are going to highlight this here. Getting kickbacks by performing surgery and fraudulently billing a company that insures taxi companies and Uber and Lyft drivers. Now, let's go back to what she said.
That, only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
So that statement right there could be used against him. So let's go back to the article because there's more. Let's pull this up here. It goes on to say that Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgeries. The lawsuit filed on December 17th. So it was filed on December 17th and news about it came out this year. The insurance firm American Transit was then billed in exchange for kickbacks and/or other compensation, which were disguised as dividends or other cash distributions. Hostin's attorney, Daniel Thwaites, told thedailymail.com his client denies each and every allegation and called the lawsuit a blanket, scattershot, meritless lawsuit by a near bankrupt insurance carrier. Okay, that's fine. He's going to defend his client. But again, go back to what Sunny said on The View. Oh, buddy, this is ain't no fun when Rico can't have none. This is not good. Yeah, I know. This is, oh my God. So I believe this is Emmanuel and there's Sunny with him there. So it goes on to say, and for her case, I hope that this isn't true, because it would be pretty damning. And then I don't know how The View would handle this, if they would continue to keep her on the show, if she would want to stay on the show. And I think this is when they went to visit her house. I remember one time they did a story about her and her family. They went to the house and all that kind of jazz and stuff like that. So let's go on to the rest of this here. It is meant to intimidate and harass doctors from collecting for care given to American Transit insureds and their passengers. This is his lawyer still speaking. He said Hostin has an impeccable record, adding American Transit has rushed into the lawsuit without ever conducting an examination of Dr. Hostin or expressing any concerns to his lawyers. The real story here is about an insurance carrier abusing the legal system to limit and restrict healthcare benefits to its insureds and their passengers and write off its proper obligations. So we got another insurance issue this year as well. Sonny Hostin, 56, has been married to the doctor for nearly quarter of a century. They tied the knot in 1998, have 2 kids, and they live in a palatial 10-bed, 10-bath estate in Purchase, New York. Can you imagine this? 10-bedroom, 10 bathrooms. I told you the women on The View are loaded. I told you they were paying them like millions of, like they make a lot of money, honey. Now, do you expect Sonny Hostin to understand like why some of the working class people didn't want to support the Democratic Party anymore? No. 10 beds and 10 bathrooms. Why do you need 10 bathrooms? Okie dokie. He goes on to say here, Sonny is a lawyer and a former prosecutor, is a senior legal correspondent and analyst for ABC News, as well as co-host for The View. And you can see here is part of the lawsuit here. And it says the surgical orthopedic providers purportedly performing arthroscopic procedures at, by, or through Surgical ASC include, but are not limited to, defendants. And of course, there's Hostin listed right there, highlighted in yellow. It goes on to list them here, their names as well. They're the surgical orthopedist, the professional entity, the associated surgical ASCs. And you'll also see his name is listed here, Emmanuel Hostin, MD. So they do list part of the lawsuit. It goes on to say, this part's kind of important because when they mention him, they say defendant Emmanuel Hostin is a natural person residing in the state of New York, was licensed to practice medicine in the state of New York on or about August 6, 2002, under license number 225878, and is listed with the New York State Department Education as the record owner of Hostin Orthopedics. So this is his business. He owns it. He owns Hostin's Orthopedics. So that is his specialty. From what I'm understanding from this article here, it says public records indicate that since approximately 2016, Hostin has had approximately 1.0750 to 1.98884% ownership interest in Empire State ASC and continues to have ownership interests in Empire State ASC. So this is very interesting, folks. I mean, it says here, defendant Hostin Orthopedics and Sports Medicine PC, Hostin Orthopedics, was incorporated February 14th, 2006. So that's another. And then it says that Hostin is the record owner. So once again, so it's not like he's working for said hospital, et cetera, which he could also do that on the side. I don't know, but he does own this business. It goes on to say here, in the suit that is filed in federal court in Brooklyn, Dr. Hostin, 54, is named as the owner of Hostin Orthopedics, working out of an 8-floor office on Lexington Avenue, close to Manhattan's Grand Central Terminal. American Transit claims rampant insurance fraud is endemic in New York State thanks to its no-fault law, under which insurers must pay up to $50,000 for medical expense for people injured in road accidents. These substantial possible no-fault recoveries can incentivize providers with ill intent to overdiagnose, overtreat, and overbill to recover the most money for themselves. Interesting. So the no-fault law is a problem. I don't agree with it. You see here how they say that doctors can take advantage of it. I don't agree with it at all. The law was introduced in 1974 in the wake of rapidly using automobile insurance costs, and when accident victims were experiencing long delays in compensation. So the law was introduced in 1974 in the wake of rapidly rising automobile insurance costs and when accident victims were experiencing long delays in compensation. So I don't know, guys. Again, it's allegedly, but right now it doesn't look too good. I don't know. What do you guys think? Here's an example. It says the insurance company claims that Hostin was given an investment interest in Empire State Ambulatory Surgical Center in exchange for referring a steady stream of patients. Empire State ASC issued regular payments to or for the benefit of Hostin, which in fact were illegal kickbacks for referrals, the court papers claim. Guys, I highly doubt that they would have all of this wrong. They probably made sure that they went through as much evidence as possible to have these examples listed in the lawsuit and to obviously have him listed as one of the defendants. But they're talking about kickbacks here. It goes on to say, as examples, the insurance company claims that Hostin, who is affiliated with several top New York hospitals, including Mount Sinai and Lenox Hill, saw two patients in January 2023 who were involved in low impact collisions. Oh boy, that should have caused no more than soft tissue injuries. Oh my God. You guys, I was just thinking about those lawyers that you see on TV, the injury lawyers, like, need a lawyer, hurt your neck, hurt your back, call Steve. Or you guys know what I'm talking about. Remember, like, Better Call Saul? Got a problem? Better call Saul. And we always would make fun of like those lawyers, the injury lawyers, because we're just like, these guys they're just trying to make money. They're just trying to make money. So if you ever saw the show Better Call Saul, remember one of the things at one point like he does, he's like, oh, does your neck hurt? No. Oh, now it does. Put this on your neck. It looks better. Put this cast around your neck. It looks better. Right. So this is what this is reminding me of at this point. This is interesting. And it goes on to say, oh, and you know what else? I just remembered something. Remember when Kamala was running for president, Sonny said that both her and her husband are a part of Greek life. Her husband was in a fraternity, Black fraternity, and she was in AKA. I forget the name of his fraternity, but she was in AKA. And so just think about that. Like they are in an elite bubble. They're a part of like the Black Boule bubble. And so I'm wondering what people in that circle may think about this particular case. Because this isn't a hush thing. Like I've already seen this online. People are already talking about it. So I'm wondering how those people, what they're saying, you know what I mean? Yes, Anton, the Divine Nine. Exactly. I wonder what are the AKAs talking about right now? What is it? Fred said pinkies up. What are they saying? What is happening? Oh my God. And of course, there's a picture of them on The View there. I mean, this is just man, pop me kettle. It says in both cases, Hostin is said to have performed arthroscopic surgery with 2 months without seeing if the patients would have recovered through more conservative care. William Notboni, an attorney for American Transit, told the Daily Mail, no-fault fraud is a huge problem in New York. Oh my God. This isn't good. Guys, this is so bad. So this is a RICO case. So Sonny Hostin, the hubby, he is caught up in a RICO situation. And I'm just thinking about all the things that Sonny said about Donald Trump in his RICO suit. Now she finds herself in a similar situation. Now, people are pointing fingers and they're saying, well, she probably knew all of this. Not necessarily. I mean, she doesn't work there. She doesn't do his job. I believe he probably did all this on his own. I don't believe she knew about this. If she did know about it, I don't think she would have made the statement that she made on The View, right? I think she would have been more hush, but I don't think she knew about this. But he allegedly has done this according to the lawsuit, and we'll have to wait and see what happens, what comes of this. But again, this is kind of like karma again. And that has been the theme of 2025 so far. That's what it seems like. This is karma all over again, ladies and gentlemen, where once again, you're starting to see how quickly we were to point fingers at someone else who was in a legal situation. And then you find yourself being in a similar situation. Let's get to the comments on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Delta allowing gambling on their flights. Told you so, Sab. Vice was the word in 24. Almost all the BIs on gambling passed while the ones on RCV failed. You're right. Thank you for the tip, Dave. Thank you, Sabby, for having Max Blumenthal on. Very sharp shooter, the brother. You are welcome. Welcome. Let's go to the comments here in YouTube. Yantra says they can use that statement in court against him. I know. That's also why I don't think she knew. I don't think she knew that this, was allegedly the case. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made that statement. MBD said 98% conviction rate for RICO cases. And from what I read, I believe sometimes with insurance fraud, you can get up to 20 years. So it depends on the state. Thank you, Cynthia. Ms. Sonny Hostin, God do not like ugly mess. My grandma used to say that. Sabrina, God don't do that. Don't behave that way. God don't like ugly. Thank you, Jamal, who's been a member for 4 months. Hey, Sabby, the 7th was my birthday. Now I'm officially ready for 25. It's time to fight the narratives and expose these frauds. Everyone, let's give Jamal a big happy birthday in the chat. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Thank you, Dre. It's called Pillow Talk because that's the only place you're supposed to talk about it. Dummy Hostin didn't get the memo. Yeah, she probably shouldn't have said that on The View. Thank you, Courtney. Sonny wouldn't vote for a felon, but obviously married to one the whole time. Hypocritical ass. Thank you, Dre. Orthopedic fraud. Sounds like the dope game, and Dr. Schools wants his black back. Pulled up like Lonzo. Want to go to jail or you want to go home? Thank you, none of your business. Sounds like Unc avoiding paying for card. And thank you, Sparky. Love you, Sabby. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Let's go on to the next story. It's time to go to Greenland. All right. All right, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. And we're moving on to this story. Okay. So here's the thing, fam. Donald Trump made this announcement that he wants to purchase Greenland and part of the Panama Canal. And I'm noticing people are talking about this story, but I'm going to tell you tonight why he wants Greenland. There's something special about it. There's something special about Greenland. It's not because he loves the Greenland people. It's not because of that. It has to do with something else. Let's go into this video here first, where Donald Trump says he wants Greenland and the Panama Canal.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you. Many things are happening that are exciting.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion
No.
What is the strategy?
Yeah.
And then
I
I've got
can't
some-
assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China.
Pause right there. So did everybody catch that part? Did you catch the part where he said they may use military, intervention? So pay attention to that. Panama is its own thing. If Panama decided that they wanted to work with China in some type of capacity, that's really up to Panama to decide. Hold on to China, though, because China is involved with both of these countries, with Greenland and with Panama. So hold on to the China piece, and then I think we'll put it all together and you guys will understand what this is really, really about. But for people who continue to say that Donald Trump is pro-peace, he's anti-war, he is not ruling out using military intervention to take the Panama Canal. So for those of you that voted for Donald Trump, whether it was to piss off Kamala Harris, whether it was because of you're just tired of the Democrats or you supported him before, whatever the reason was, do not let Donald Trump go against his word, what he promised you. Don't let him do that to you. Just like I didn't let Biden do that to me or what was soon to be Kamala, don't let him do that to you. Listen to the rest.
And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion.
Your position is clear, but have you directed your staff to take specific actions to draw plans? And can you elaborate again? You didn't rule out military coercion.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time.
It's not national security. That's an excuse they use when they don't really want you to know the real reason, right? Just like they keep saying, like, Israel was in our best interest for national security. It's not because of national security. Let's continue.
Considering military force to annex and acquire.
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. We're going to be changing sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. Before it started, I can tell you that. The deal could have been made just by an average deal maker. Deal could have been made on that. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada, because Canada, they come through Canada too. And the drugs that are coming through are at record numbers.
So he is right when he mentions that people do cross the Canadian border as well. A lot of times that's not mentioned. Everyone just thinks about Mexico, but people do cross the Canadian border as well. But think about the things that he just said. The Panama Canal won't rule out using military force. Greenland is willing to implement economic sanctions on Denmark to get Greenland, because Denmark, owns Greenland, all this stuff. So just follow me here. And then let's change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Okay, here's the thing, guys. The point that I want to make is none of this has anything to do with the American people. None of this has anything to do with us and our needs right here at home. These are things that benefit businesses. These are things that benefit corporations. And I'll show you here with Greenland, for example. Do you know China's in Greenland? What is China doing there and why? How many of you knew? So if you look at the geopolitical timeline of Greenland, right? The U.S. offered to buy it in 1946. We'll just go down here. We're not going to go this whole thing. But you can see here, 1979, the Kingdom of Denmark grants home rule to Greenland. Let's fast forward here. It says in 2016, Shing Resources buy 1/8 of Greenland minerals and energy stocks, which develops a uranium and a rare earth site. Everybody see this? So that's 2016. And then you also can see here in 2015 that Minister, we're just going to call him Minister Q, talks about airport, port, hydroelectric, and mining infrastructure development in Hydro, China State Construction Engineering, China Harbor Engineering. So as you can see, going back to 2012, China's Minister of Land and Resources visits Greenland. So there are resources in Greenland, guys. And it just so happens that China decided to take the jump. They took the leap and said, let's go to Greenland and see what this is all about. And they've been doing that ever since. So if we fast forward, let's jump down here. We got a little cute chart that they made for you. And you'll see Chinese investment in Arctic littoral nations from 2012 to 2017. Canada is first. You see Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, and then of course the US, we're all the way down here. But as you can see that Canada has invested in Greenland. If we scroll down, it says Chinese interest in Greenlandic infrastructure becomes clear when looking at the attempt of Hong Kong-based company General Nice to take over the abandoned naval base Grenada in 2016. It also goes on to show you, let's hop down here. Finally, China has significantly invested in the establishment of research stations over the last years. In general, Beijing is determined to ensure it is a front runner in the Arctic. A front runner in the Arctic, which closely relates to their objectives. To this end, Beijing aims to ensure that Chinese companies most effectively seize the new opportunities in the Arctic. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're looking at another example where China decided to, I guess, take the lead and invest in a country that it seems like we kind of overlooked. This is why he wants Greenland, because they want to push China out. Same reason for the Panama Canal. He mentioned the Panama Canal, that China has it. They want to push China out. Remember, China is an economic power. We sent a lot of jobs to China. I mean, we can't blame them for that one. You can talk about NAFTA, and we can talk about this all day. As I told you, we don't produce much here in this country. So we sent a lot of jobs to China. Then we don't produce much here in this country. So China went on to become like this major economic power. And now, regardless if it's a Democrat or Republican, both parties really want to stop China because the US wants to be the number one dominant country in the world. This goes all the way back to the Wolfowitz Doctrine, which stated that no other global power is supposed to amass that of the United States. So if we fast forward to this part, it says, in conclusion, the void created when Greenland was given greater autonomy from central authorities in the Kingdom of Denmark and subsequently left the EEC was happily filled by China. So that is why he wants it. Now, here's the problem. Greenland basically belongs to Denmark. And because it belongs to Denmark, there is some things that people in Greenland get that we don't get here, like healthcare. So here's another thing, the right to healthcare services in Greenland. See what I mean? Says it right here. As in all Nordic countries, residents of Greenland have the right to health care that is free at point of use, including prescription medicine. However, users pay a proportion of the cost of aids and appliances such as prosthetics or glasses. You are also entitled to a certain amount of free dental care. So, got a question for you, bud. If this happens, and I don't think it's going to, but if this were to happen and the US were to purchase Greenland, are we going to pay for their health care? Who's going to pay for their health care if Denmark no longer is taking care of this? Is the US government going to pay for? No, they don't even pay for our health care. So let's just keep that in mind. They don't even pay for our health care. But there are benefits that they have there in Greenland that we do not have here. So just remember those Arctic countries, what they get and what we don't get. Think about Canada, think about Iceland, Greenland. We can go back to Denmark as well. We don't get those benefits. So people are like saying, yay, this will be great, but they're not asking any questions. And I always get concerned when people aren't asking questions. Like, people are like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Really? No questions? And by the way, if anyone is ever presenting something to you and they ask you, are there any questions? You should always have a question. Never just be like, whatever it is, what it is. But Greenland is not buying this. In fact, Greenland is saying that we are not for sale. Listen to, this is a member of the Danish parliament here who is a Greenland resident. I want you to hear what she had to say about this.
Contact with all kinds of media from all over the world. So, of course, everybody is interested in hearing what is Greenland's position. And Greenland is not for sale. Greenland will never be for sale. And therefore, I think it's important to be more respectful when it comes to a collaboration with a near ally.
There's video today of President-elect Trump's son, Don Jr., arriving in Greenland today. And they've got a crowd of people waiting for him to arrive or cheering him on. Some of them are wearing MAGA hats. Don Jr. then posted a photo from Greenland of even more people wearing MAGA hats behind the American flag. And he posted, along with that, Ms. Chemnitz, quote, Greenland loves America and Trump. And last night, as Don Jr. was on his way to Greenland, President-elect Trump posted saying, I am hearing that the people of Greenland are MAGA. Now, obviously, they're going to post pictures of people who support them. But when you look at those images, when you think about what you know, is it possible that there are people in Greenland who truly do support Trump and support what he wants?
Of course, and I think you can find that in all countries, but I don't think it's part of the majority. I think it's a very small minority. And most of the people on the picture are people that I know. But I also know that with the free lunch that was given to people standing outside, just dragging people in from the street, more or less, giving them a MAGA hat and then just taking pictures. Of course, it's the talk of the town. Of course, it's nice that there's an interest in Greenland, but that's not the same that Greenland wants to be American and we want to be American citizens. Greenland is not mega. Greenland is not going to be mega. And I think in many ways it's a Trump stunt. It's what he's done many times before. Mm-hmm. But I think the majority in Greenland, they find it quite scary, actually, and quite uncomfortable that there's so much focus on Greenland and that U.S. is actually in a disrespectful way showing that they would like to be buying Greenland or controlling Greenland. That is not what the population in Greenland wants.
And I don't think that's what most Americans want either. Like I said, again, like, who is going to pay for, when people ask, like, who's going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for universal health care? How are you going to pay for all these things? Who's going to pay for these things for people in Greenland? Start asking these questions, guys. Like when they ask us, oh, you want health care for everybody? How are you going to pay for it? Start asking them. Oh, you want more wars? How are you going to pay for that? Oh, you want to give Israel $3.8 billion a year? How are you going to pay for that? Oh, you guys want to acquire Greenland? How are you going to pay for them? How are you going to give them what they're supposed to have? Start asking them those same questions. So it doesn't sound like, again, a lot of people saw that picture and they were like, look, all these people are happy to see Donald Trump Jr. there in Greenland. All what people? It wasn't a lot of people. So let's not get carried away. And obviously, it doesn't sound like that's what the majority wants there, that they want to be, captured by him. And then there's the thing about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico. So the president of Mexico, she did respond to that. I think she has a sense of humor here. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum responds to Trump on his proposal to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico and points to a 17th century map of Greater Mexico. You guys have got to see this. This is funny.
Digo, obviamente, Golfo de México es reconocido el nombre por Naciones Unidas, un organismo de Naciones Unidas, pero el siguiente, ¿por qué no le llamamos América Mexicana? Se oye bonito, ¿no? ¿Verdad que sí? Desde 1607, la Constitución de Apatzingán era de América Mexicana. Entonces,
so what she's saying is, okay, well, since you want to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, while we're at it, can we change the United States back to Mexico? Remember when that part of the majority part was Mexico, how it used to be? She's like, why don't we just change it back to that? I'll give her that. She has a sense of humor. Leroy said, it's beautiful, no? Oh my gosh. Come on, guys. You got to laugh at that one. That one was a good one. Okay. So honestly, do I think this is going to happen? No, I don't think we're going to buy Greenland. If that does happen, I will come on here and I don't know, I'll do something silly for you, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's Trump just talking about things. But the question that you should be asking is, again, what matters the most? What matters the most right now is the American people, right? We're talking about wages. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about people being able to put decent food on the table, for their families. We're talking about those types of things. So what the focus should not be on Greenland. I don't want to hear nothing about no Panama, none of those types of things. The focus should be on what are you going to do to help the American people? That's where the priority should be. All right. Let's go ahead and go to some of the comments. Rich said Trump talking out of his ass. Oh my God, this is crazy. Brain Power said minerals. That's right. Sparky said, thank you. Free Greenland from Danish tyranny. Thanks for this as well. US just stopped at 50 states since it's a nice round number. Is that really a good reason to stop adding states? There's not much room for more stars on the flag, but that's not a good reason either. No, but I mean, we can't even take care of the people we got now. That's the thing. Thank you, Edward. Greenland is not for sale. Thanks, Sparky. Make Greenland green again. And thank you for this one, Sparky. Could guarantee Medicare for all to get Canadians to accept statehood. Then the other state will insist they get it too. Kind of an indirect way to get Medicare for all. And that's another thing. I don't see Canadians giving up their health care to Isaac said, I'm in Canada and nobody is excited about becoming American. They treasure their health care. There you go. See? Thank you for this one, Sparky. The U.S. already has the big Thule Air Force Base in Greenland, which is probably over half of their economy since the North Atlantic cod fishery is depleted. And thank you, Roger. This will be the first white ran country invaded. Greenland should be so proud to be the first. ID politics always on play here in the U.S. Oh, my God. Oh, buddy. Isn't it funny how Greenland, even though the name is Greenland, Greenland is actually very, snowy and Iceland is actually pretty green. What's up with that? Let's get the comment on Rockfin, Eric. What is up with that? Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. JBB says, love Max. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. It's funny times. Okay. Really quick. Just want to announce this again. And we are going to do call in tonight. So stay tuned for that. but I do want to shout it out one more time. If you are in the LA area, there are mutual aid resources available to you. This is making the rounds on social media. I've shared it on here as well. Eric, you can put the link to the Google Sheet in the chat again one more time. But there is a Google Sheet that is going around on social media, Milan Fire and Windstorm resources, available resources. They are listing the city, they list the name, the items that they have available for you, the type of aid that's available, the address, and they're also asking you if you have animals and volunteers needs as well. So Eric has been sharing this. I already covered the LA fire story, so make sure you watch that when you get a chance. And I shared this link there as well. So if you're in that area and you need help, there is mutual aid efforts going around. All right, now we're going to get to some fun. Thank you, Sparky. Instead of giving Greenlanders healthcare, maybe they could be slaves. They could be slaves them. Sure, we'd still be responsible for their healthcare, but it would be offset by no paychecks. Just the thought. Absolutely not, Sparky. Everybody got to get paid. What are we doing? Everybody got to get paid around here. Okay. Let's get to the next thing. This is going to be fun. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. All right. So I got to take a moment and give super kudos to my comrade Nick Cruz over at RBN. He debated Congressman Ro Khanna. And I think that this was productive. Some people didn't agree with it, didn't think that Ro Khanna should have been on there, but we're not an echo chamber. And I've said this before. You guys know this about my show. Like, I bring on people with different views. I'm not going to bring on someone that I only agree with, that type of thing. But what is significant about this conversation is that Ro Khanna reached out to Nick. Nick did not reach out to Ro Khanna. And he reached out to Nick because they had back and forth on Twitter. And Nick said, this strategy that you guys are doing, the progressive strategy, it's not working. It didn't get us anywhere. So that's why they had the debate. So Ro Khanna came on to RBN to discuss strategy. And I don't think it went too well for Ro. Now, we're going to talk about certain parts of this debate. You can let me know what you think, but I don't think, even if I didn't know Nick, I wouldn't have walked away from this thinking, okay, Ro Khanna, you sold me on your idea. You sold me on your strategy. I wouldn't have walked away thinking that. But you guys don't know either one of them. So maybe you can let me know who won this debate. Let's get started with this point here where Nick brings up the strategy is not working.
The strategy that you guys engaged in and the failure of the Bernie movement, your strategy has been so bad, it's hard to come to the conclusion that you guys are not there to lose on purpose. And the reason why I'm extremely upset is because the working class, we spent $400 billion already on the Bernie campaign. And that was wasted because you guys decided to support a genocidal party in Joe Biden. So I'm asking you, after we wasted that much money already, propping AOC and Bernie up, and they was willing to betray us, why should we do it again?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I always want to have a civil conversation, exchange ideas from people who are critical. I was a co-chair of Bernie Sanders' campaign, so I appreciate people who supported him. And I know what you're saying. I had people who said they were giving $5, $10 working class folks. I mean, these weren't people making $100,000 or $1 million off of. They were making $30,000, $40,000, and were still foregoing something that they wanted every month to support him. And I know Senator Sanders took that very, very seriously. Look, I believe if he was president, we would have had a very, very different outcome. I don't think you would have had the support for Netanyahu unconditionally. I think we would have gotten the $15 minimum wage. We would have had expansion of Medicare. And that's why I supported him twice. I mean, but the fact is he came very, very close. He won Iowa, Nevada, New Hampshire, and what we need eventually is a progressive to actually win the presidency. But he did have a major impact on Biden on domestic policy. I mean, we got the American Rescue Plan.
Pause. They always want to go back to the American Rescue Plan. So what Ro Khanna is trying to do here is he's trying to make the case for people to continue with the progressive movement, or what's left of the progressive movement at this point, through the Democratic Party. He came onto RBN to make the case for people to still not give up on the Democratic Party. Now, some of you are wondering, why would he need to do that? I think that Ro Khanna realized that, especially someone like Nick has a very large following on Twitter. I think that Ro Khanna is realizing that they kind of do need to talk to different people if they really want a chance at winning, like the Democratic Party, right? They ignore, like, for the most part, they usually ignore independent media, and then independent media they choose to engage with, it's usually the large platforms, right? So the fact that he came onto RBN is like, okay, this is a group of people that I probably should talk to, because I don't think we can win without them. Because a lot of these people are the disaffected Bernie voters, the people who did support progressive strategies and have decided to walk away. So let's continue here.
And we've got the support.
We have a record amount of homeless people, Congressman. We have a record amount of people who are homeless right now.
Yeah.
There's a record amount of Americans who have medical debt. The American Rescue Plan did nothing to address that.
Well, look, the American Rescue Plan provided checks to Americans. It expanded the child tax credit that really helped reduce poverty. Now, we fought to make it permanent, and it was not permanent. I agree that was a failing, but there was massive funding to historically Black colleges and universities. There was funding for primary schools. There was funding for working families with the child tax credit, $300 a month to folks.
Let me pause here, because you see, here's the problem. Nick said to Ro Khanna, we have a record number of homelessness. The article, I read it to you guys first this year. The article already came out that said the homelessness rate increased by 18% in 2024 alone. Now, when you look at Black people, a part of that particular statistic, we are 40% of the homeless population. Ro Khanna proceeds to go on and discuss, well, you know, we had the American Rescue Plan and we gave people $300 a month. That's people with kids, by the way. And from what I understand, some people with kids didn't get nothing. But we can talk about that another time. Okay, so there's that. But how is it that we have a homelessness rate that increased by 18% in 2024? This is post-pandemic in 2024. So the American Rescue Plan didn't affect the homelessness rate in this country in a positive way at all. This is what I mean by giving people crumbs versus giving people, you know, these significant policies that are going to change their life.
People got a check of over $1,000. There were good things in that bill. And then we capped in the Inflation Reduction Act the cost of insulin, the $35. And Bernie and I have a bill that Americans shouldn't pay more than people in Japan and Europe. And that should be for any drug. We didn't go that far, but we got at least 10 drugs that Medicare is going to negotiate. So there are things because of Bernie Sanders that have moved the party. But if your point is we need a progressive president.
How are you going to get any of those progressive things to pass when you're not willing to fight your party? You voted with along with Joe Biden 99% of the time, bro. As we have homeless people in the streets, as he is sending endless amount of money to fund genocide, and you're voting 99% of the time. And you voted for Hakeem Jeffries, and Hakeem Jeffries, his entire goal, he made it very clear, was that he wanted to destroy the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. And not only do you vote for him, you often provide propaganda for him. So the strategy is incoherent, bro. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I voted with 37 Democrats against giving offensive weapons to Israel. I was one of 37 Democrats who voted against the Biden administration on that issue. And
but at the end of the day, the point that Nick is trying to make is that what does any of that matter, Khanna, if you support the very same person who said they are fighting against you? To endorse and support Hakeem Jeffries after he made the statement that he is going after progressives, he found a pact to go after progressive members of Congress. Why would you support someone who wants to take you down? It is very weird to me, you know? It's just like, imagine if somebody came to you and they said, my plan is to make sure that you don't work here no damn more, okay? Like, pretend at your job, if one of your coworkers just came to you and said, my plan is to make sure that you don't work here anymore because I don't like you and you're causing issues. Your response to that would then be, okay, let me go ahead and support and endorse you and da-da-da. What the hell? This person made it very clear they don't want you there. They don't want anything to do with you. The last thing that you should have done was to support them or endorse them.
Been very critical of the administration on that issue, as has Sanders, as have other progressives. But the challenge is that Bernie didn't win. He would have had different people in there in foreign policy. He would have had different people in there.
Matt does support the genocide. Matt does support NATO. Matt Duss was Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor. Matt Duss, he is one of the worst neocons I've seen in office. Now, Bernie is better than the average Democrat when it comes to language, but just like Bernie, you guys reject BDS, the boycott, divestment sanctions. Am I correct on that? I saw you was opposed to that. Am I correct? I don't want to state your record, but you and Bernie.
No, you've been factual so far. I have opposed BDS. I don't oppose the criminalization of it. I don't oppose making it a crime. I'm a huge free speech advocate, but I don't think that is the right way of getting peace in the region. I am for.
Isn't that how we ended apartheid in South Africa? Didn't we end apartheid in South Africa by massive boycotts, bro?
Yep.
I think I supported that in the case of South Africa.
But why not Israel?
Because I think that there has to be a secure Israel and a secure Palestine. And what I have called for
why do I have to be a secure Israel? They committed genocide, sir. The formation of Israel was dependent on the creation of a Palestinian state, sir. Israel as a state blocked the creation of Palestine. So why do you support Israel? They are a rogue criminal regime. Meanwhile, you want us to hate Russia, who provide health care for their people.
Because AIPAC owns Congress. Solid question there from Nick. Why do you need to have a secure Israel? They committed genocide. Like, there's no way, like, in my mind, I really sit back and I think about these things sometimes. There's no way in my mind you can just sit there and say to yourself, okie dokie, I know that my party committed genocide, but I'm going to support and endorse. And here's the thing, you didn't even have to endorse. Khanna, you didn't even have to endorse anybody. Nobody. You could have just been quiet. Like the majority of the politicians in Congress that were a part of the Democratic Party that were quiet. You didn't have to say anything. No, you got to come out there with your shiny white teeth on TV and you have to say, oh, of course I endorse Joe Biden. And he was the weakest of the weak. Then Kamala Harris is announced as the nominee. And then you're like, oh, of course I support and I endorse Kamala Harris. And that is the problem with the progressive movement. That was the problem. There was never a red line. Genocide, apparently, and what Nick revealed in this debate, apparently that wasn't even a red line. So how are you going to push the Democratic Party left if the Democratic Party keep pushing you to the right? How are you going to push the Democratic Party left if you as a base don't have any red lines? All that we've seen happen since 2016, since this progressive movement, we have seen these squad members and Khanna who jumped onto the Justice Democrat thing late in the game. We have seen them be pushed to the right. We haven't seen you guys push the Democratic Party to the left. And two of them are already gone. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman were kicked out. They got rid of them. They got them out of there. AIPAC said, let's pull up the money and get them out. So to Nick's point, You are not holding the line.
Well, no, I disagree with you very strongly on that. I think that there is a claim that both people have to that land, and this is why I support both.
No, there's
Israel
not. No, there's not. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me just finish. I fundamentally believe that there is a claim that the Jewish people have for many years on that land, going all the way back to King David. There's a claim.
So they are allowed to use guns. They are allowed to use force to implement that claim.
No, if I could just finish, there's a claim that the Palestinians have on that land, and that's why what we need is a Palestinian state, which I have supported, and where I believe the United States should recognize a Palestinian state. And we should look at, this is not just my view. This is the view of the Arab League. The 21 Arab states have come up with a proposal recognizing the right of Israel to exist, recognizing Israel as a Jewish democratic state, and also calling for a Palestinian state. And that is ultimately the framework that's going to bring peace. It's an Arab initiative plan by countries in that region. They're not calling those states.
Sorry, I apologize, Rob. I appreciate you answering.
No, I appreciate it. Those states aren't calling for BDS. I'm just saying, why not work on the framework that the states, Jordan, Egypt, the other Gulf states are pushing for?
How do you feel about Anthony Blinken and Joe Biden undermining that by supporting Israeli terrorist attacks in the West Bank? Biden said he was going to put sanctions on Israeli terrorist units that was launching terrorist attacks in the West Bank, and then he rolled back on that. Kamala Harris, when she was a senator, voted with Lindsey Graham and many right-wing senators in order to condemn the UN for criticizing Israel for launching illegal invasion into Palestinian land. So do you see the problem? Even if you support a Palestinian state, it doesn't make sense for you to support Joe Biden, whose policy has been the exact opposite of that.
Well, I vocally criticized President Biden on the policy towards a blank check on Netanyahu and voted against him on that issue. But my view is that there were so many issues at stake in the election. There were abortion rights at stake. There was working class issues at stake. There were issues of immigration at stake. And even though I disagreed with him on the war, and I actually called for a Palestinian speaker at the DNC. I said that I went many times to Michigan. I met with someone who was a Yemenese American who was kicked out of one of Harris's rallies, and I had dinner with that person. So did I agree with everything that Biden or Harris were saying?
I'm glad that you are willing to.
We'll go ahead and pause there for that part. And there's another part that I want to go to. The point is that even though he did those things, in the end, Khanna did, of course, endorse Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So again, he wasn't willing to hold the line. And this is probably the most explosive part here, when Nick does question him about the difference between Ukraine and Gaza. Listen to this. This is really funny.
Here is Lindsey Graham literally telling the truth about what's really going on in Ukraine.
Ukraine is still standing. This war is about money. People don't talk much about it, but the richest country in all of Europe for rare earth minerals is Ukraine. $2 to $7 trillion worth of minerals that are rare earth minerals, very relevant to the 21st century. Ukraine's ready to do a deal with us, not the Russians. So it's in our interest to make sure that Russia doesn't take over the place. It's the breadbasket of really the developing world. 50% of all the food going to Africa comes out of Ukraine.
So, bro, is it about rare earth minerals? Is it about money, or is it actually caring about the Ukrainian people?
For me, it's about the principle of self-determination. I mean, that's what influenced me growing up, right? My grandfather's struggle against colonialism and the belief that people should have the right to have self-determination of their nationhood. It's why I support a Palestinian state, self-determination for Palestinians. It's why I support a Jewish state of the state of Israel.
You support Hamas?
Watch this. Because Khanna kind of walked right into this, you guys. Like, I was surprised this happened, but he did walk right into it.
In the right for Palestinians to engage in self-defense against Israel?
I don't support Hamas.
So you don't support. So Hamas is an organization with Palestinians, correct? Israel is illegally occupying Gaza and the West Bank and committing a genocide according to international courts. If anyone has the right to self-defense, it will be Palestinians, aka Hamas.
Well, look,
So how do you oppose that, but you want to wage war with Russia because the United States is in their backyard?
I come from a tradition of belief that nonviolence demonstration and the tradition of Gandhi or King is what's going to help.
Why not apply it to Ukraine? There was a peace deal on the table.
Well, because that was the invasion of a sovereign state.
Israel's invading Palestine.
And I believe we need to have the recognition of Palestinian state. But here, the support of the Ukrainian people. And by the way, many of us progressives have said for track 2 diplomacy. In fact, I got criticized because I was one of the few progressives on a letter that was saying that we should have diplomacy at the same time to bring a just peace to the and an end to this conflict. And for that, the letter came out before the midterms. You can see this; it's a public record. Half of my colleagues backed away from the letter, and I stood by the letter and looked.
We remember all that, Ro. We remember Ro got to go back and dredge up the past, right? So that was an excellent point that Nick made there. If you believe in this idea of self-determination, why is it that you understand the self-determination for Ukraine and you feel that they have the right to stand up for their self and protect their people? But when it comes to Gaza and the Palestinian people, they do not have the right to have self-determination and to stand up for their people. Everybody see what's going on here? And it's because AIPAC controls Congress. There is one more point here that I want to mention as well. This is at the end. And please, when you get the time, go watch the full debate. But this is why Ro Khanna wanted to come on. And I believe that Ro Khanna is probably thinking about running for president in 2028. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. Wait, would it be 2028 or 2029? 2028. Anyway, I think that Ro Khanna might be thinking about running for president. And I think he's trying to find a way to appeal to all these different people. Also, because of the way that the Democratic Party lost, I think that's why he feels like I need to go on to talk to these people who have kind of given up on like the Bernie, movement. And Ro Khanna was a part of that too. He was also part of that Bernie movement. So this is what he says at the end. Listen to this, guys, because I'm going to get him on this one. Watch.
While I respect your right to organize as a third party, while I respect your right to perhaps even support third-party candidates, whether Congress, Senate, or presidency, I would just ask that you keep an open mind that if there are progressive candidates for the House, for the Senate, or the presidency, that you be open to moving the party also in the right direction.
So everybody heard that, right? So that was Ro Khanna trying to say, I support your right to organize with third parties, but at the same time, I also want you to be open-minded to supporting Democrat candidates that may be progressive, that are running for congressional seats or the White House. Everybody see this? And he might be talking about himself as well, right? If he were to run for president. Now all of a sudden, Ro Khanna is open to supporting organizing with third-party candidates or people choosing to organize for third parties. But that wasn't what he told me 2 years ago. See, videos are forever.
For working families and the policies we want. Let's look at the Democrats.
Let's go back just a little bit here. Information. It seems like to me that they're obviously trying to put someone into primary against Joe Biden. I would actually say that 2024 would actually be the time that a third party candidate could actually stand a good shot.
Well, the question is, who's the third party candidate? It tends to be someone who's a billionaire, and it's not clear to me that they're going to be for working families and the policies we want. Let's look at the Democratic Party's history. I mean, the party has gotten us Social Security. It got us Medicare. It got us civil rights legislation. It got us voting rights legislation. It got us the expansion of the Earned Income Tax Credit. It got us strong union laws. It got us the Affordable Care Act. It stood up for women's rights. So
notice how he brings up all these things that happened in the past and not that was happening. Again, this was 2 years ago, not that was happening present day.
I think that there's a lot that the Democratic Party has achieved. Now, we, in my view, ought to be making the Democratic Party a progressive party, a populist party, a party that's going to stand for bold policy. but it would be wrong to give up on a party that has achieved so much. Now, if there is an independent grassroots candidate who is standing for bold progressive policies, fine. But usually the independent third-party candidates tend to be billionaires or celebrities, and it's not clear to me that those policies that they're going to advocate are going to be Medicare for all or free public college or the progressive policies that many people, your listeners, care about.
Well, I happen to know one here locally pretty well who was a grassroots third-party candidate, and that was Dr. Jill Stein. And when she ran, we were guilt-tripped to vote for Hillary Clinton. That if we didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, then Trump would win. But I still say to this day that Jill Stein was the better candidate.
Well, I supported Hillary Clinton in the general election, and I'm proud of supporting Hillary Clinton. I think that Trump was such a threat to democracy and is such a threat to democracy. Look, if Hillary Clinton had won, we would not have had Roe versus Wade overturned. So I do not agree with people who supported Jill Stein, especially in swing states, because the costing of Hillary Clinton that election really led to Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and the Supreme Court that we currently have.
So that was just 2 years ago. And now look at what he's saying to Nick. I support people that want to organize for third parties, but I also want you to be open to supporting progressives that are running the Democratic Party on the congressional level and for the White House as well. What you smoking, Ro? What are you smoking? Did you guys not see what he told me about third parties at that point? And Jill Stein wasn't even running at that point. So this is all over the place, all over the place. Maybe he realizes that wasn't the best approach. Maybe he realizes that since Kamala lost. I mean, those of us that wanted to vote third party, we voted third party anyway, despite what Rose said to me in this interview. So JB said Roe closed that door 2 years ago. Right. So, I mean, that wasn't that long ago. Brian said Roe vote shaming. That's what it felt like to me. And maybe he does realize that probably wasn't the best idea to do. So now when he came on with Nick, he was basically saying like, well, you can organize for third party, but also at the same time, I still want you to support some of these people that are running in the Democratic Party. So I think what Roe kind of showed was that his strategy is not working. In that debate with Nick, it's not. That's why he's now saying, I support you organizing with third parties, because, it didn't work. So I think, again, I saw the full debate. When you get a chance, watch the full debate. But I think that Nick won that debate. I think he did the damn thing. And I think that Ro Khanna could possibly be seeking a presidential run in the future. And I also think that he realizes that maybe Kamala would have had a better chance if we would have reached out to people like Nick Cruz, if we would have reached out to people that watch Revolutionary Blackout. Don't know, man. Don't know. But one thing you do have to understand, particularly about him, though, is that, remember, at the end of the day, Ro Khanna is always going to back his party. So there was never a red line. Just keep that in mind. But I think Nick did a great job. All right, guys, we are going to do call in. It is Thursday night, so I hope you get ready to be treated all right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back and we'll start calling.
All right, good deal. All right, so I'm Eric T. Red. I'm usually in the background, but this is where I jump into the foreground for a little while we give Sabrina a little break. And she'll be setting up the Zoom room, and then we'll be giving you the link. And so the Zoom Hangout was formerly call-in. So we encourage everyone to participate in that. And it's where we get to hear what you think. You can talk about any of the stories that we covered tonight or anything you want. The cameras are optional. You can have your cameras on. You can have your cameras off. Sometimes a certain cat that I know makes a starring appearance on there. We'll see. And then, that Ro Khanna interview. Yeah, I thought Nick did a really good job of pressing him. And there's the whole idea of the red line, and yeah, like if genocide isn't a red line, what is? I mean, Sabby had the theme tonight of what matters most, and I think genocide is as a red line is something that can really really matter most. And I think Nick pressed him, and if we get the chance, the way we can be pressing him, and these other Democrats even more, is to say, how can you remain a part of a party that abets genocide, and that that is pushing genocide for financial gain, because that is what the Democratic Party is. And don't get me wrong, the Republicans are as bad or worse. But the point is, anyone who's against genocide and is really for peace and is in working in the interests of the 99% cannot be a member of either of these two major parties. And that's really, it's kind of like a case closed thing, right? When you put it out there. And the genocide is the example that makes it obvious, but there's no shortage of just clear examples that both of these parties, Democrat, Republican, are working in the interests of that top 0.1% class of the billionaire class. It's about interest. The billionaires and the mega corporations, which are really just the tools of the billionaires, pay both parties to represent their interests and not ours, the 99%. And people, talk about, AIPAC owns Congress and the Zionists. And I think, while to some extent that's true, I think it's even more accurate to widen that out and note that the billionaires control Congress. The billionaires own it. And AIPAC is one, and they're quite effective, one flavor of that. But, you also had the billionaires pushing Ukraine, and the reason Israel happens and Ukraine happens is the money, is the weapons. Every bomb dropped on a Palestinian's head is more money for the MIC. And of course, the whole Ukraine situation is just an obvious money laundering scheme. And I think it's important to frame it in that way. Anyways, I got to get to some of these super chats before we'll be transitioning over to the Zoom call in the Hangout. And thanks, Dwayne, for your supportive comments and everybody. Let's see here. All right, thanks for the super chat, Sparky, who had a correction to his previous super chat, saying he forgot to edit out them. He said, I tried to use enslave them, but it wouldn't take it in that context. Yeah, sometimes the YouTube algorithm, it gets pretty sticky about what it allows in the chats, and it's definitely not our doing. Like, YouTube has these algorithmic things, and if you put a combination of words that it doesn't like, then it's just not gonna take it, and you have to reword things sometimes and do code words and things. And thanks for this one, Sparky. It's saying Nick obliterated Ro Khanna. Edward Shore, thanks for the super chat. He says, I'm pissed. We should have elected Jill Stein. Well, yep, I hear you. I voted for her. And yeah, we need to be, thinking of a politics where that could actually happen. And I think it's going to take a big movement is really the key. Thanks for this one, Sparky. I guess we can give Ro Khanna credit for showing up on alternative media. The rest of them won't. And I appreciate Cheetah being a member for 2 months, who says, row a boat with the genocide, hypocrisy. And thanks for the super chat, Tristan Graff G, who says, notice in Sab's video with Roe, he's in the passenger seat. Yep, and getting driven around. And another thing I wanted to hit here was there was this tweet. Let me just bring it up here that Sabby had highlighted. That's not the one. Here it is, about homelessness, and this was where we saw. Here it is. where we saw, homelessness in the United States has increased 33% since 2020, and this is the Biden administration, and this is their legacy. Is this homeless rise? And what I said to that is I made the direct connection, that meanwhile, at the same time, that the wealth of the top, 0.1%, that billionaire class has soared. And, you can make these real direct connections. And the other thing you see, and this is one of my favorite charts here, is about average wealth per household is, you see what's happening down here with the lower percentages, the 40% flat, the next 9% get a little bit. The top 1%, they're doing relatively better, but you see this top 0.1% graph, and it's not sustainable. It's outrageous, and I think people just need to realize this more and more. This is why our country is in the state it's in. Is there is just so much wealth being pushed up to that 0.1%, to that billionaires, and we have kind of the famous ones that and this is the total billionaire wealth is up 88%. This is over the last 4 years. And you see Elon Musk getting his big push in wealth with the stuff he's been doing, and Bezos is chugging along. Zuckerberg, and you have Larry Ellison, Buffett, and it's like once they get to that point, it's like they can't lose, and they're making money off of money. And so we need to recognize that this is the core problem that we have to deal with, and it's that, and then the connection of that into our politics. That's like the puppet strings that we need to cut between what that billionaire class is doing and corrupting our government. And until we get serious about doing that behind a movement driven by a set of clear demands, until we do that, it's going to be like this. And I'd say what I say is our one shot at saving this mess is figuring out a way to generate a mass movement of millions of people behind clear demands that target this direct problem as the number one thing.
That's right. Eric's correct about that. So we can talk about all this on call-in. So let's go ahead and dive in over there. So the link to the call-in is posted and pinned on the top. You see the top there of the live chat. You'll see the link to the call-in as well as the passcode.
And we do have one Rumble rant that I don't have it set up to show it, but it's from Soccer Papa, who said Roe thought that Nick could be bought. He was wrong. So thanks for that one, Soccer Papa on Rumble. And I'm going to get Sabby Sabs 2 set up.
Okay. All right. So once you get into call-in, it looks like people are already in the call-in. If you can just mute your mic, just mute yourself. Everyone go ahead and mute your mic. Thank you. And then if you want to speak, you will, at the bottom of the screen, click raise your hand. That's how I know you want to speak. I think most of you know how this works anyway. And if you come into the stream after we have already wrapped up, you can always go to sabbysabs2.com. And you'll get the link and the passcode there as well. But it looks like people don't need the passcode. You guys are already in. So we'll go ahead and hop in and over there. And one more thing I want to tell you guys. I do have another interview that's coming up. I'm going to be recording that one tomorrow morning. And then it'll post probably, I think, Saturday. So look forward to that as well. Scott Ritter's going to come back. He's got some things to talk about this case that happened, the attack in New Orleans, along with the Vegas Cybertruck explosion. Scott Ritter has his own little take about this. So we're going to talk about that and also updates about Ukraine and Russia. So don't miss that. I'll be live again tomorrow night.
Can you read out the 2 last super chats?
Oh, yeah. Can everyone mute yourself? Thank you. Let me, somebody's not muted. I don't know who it is, but let me go ahead and read the super chats. Did I miss you? Oh, thank you only. I'm sure the people can redistribute the wealth if we're careful where we spend. Interesting point. And thank you, Sparky. There's the old Wall Street saying, to make $10 into $11 is almost impossible, but to turn 10 million into 11 million is inevitable. There you go. All right, guys, let's hop on over to call in. I'll see you there. Have a good night.
You can make me co-host and we'll see you in there.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and make you co-host real quick. Make co-host. All right. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.